being with so many different settings, and for me, I mean, before I got to performance rehab ortho, it was primary football setting for me, but still to see at different levels. What is your take on some of the similarities of what helps people to perform at this elite level, or not even elite, but just perform to their optimum capacity?
It's really interesting because you've spoken about it on your podcast more and more, and you talk about the mental aspect that comes into that, right? And psychological preparation. And something I liked about one of your conversations with Kaimi was this idea that you physically prepare, but you have to be in the right mental state, right? So the psychology behind it I find fascinating, and everybody gets to what we call, air quotes, the zone in a different way. What matters is that everyone arrives at that point simultaneously or darn close to it, and they're on the same page there. As far as similarities in performing and working out, I think there's a massive carryover in a trend in similarity, that when you're expecting so much physically of your body at such a high level, at a consistent and repetition, often and early and at a very high level, as I said already, that is both physically and mentally demanding. So when someone finishes a rehearsal or workout or show and comes off and is just exhausted, they razz each other and give each other a hard time. Like, hey man, like that fight was only 2 minutes, like calm down, right? But the mental strain to be so precise, we're talking punches less than 2 inches away. That's the proximity that we're trying to get, in that it has to sell. And one thing that I get a lot, and I learned this working with these people, is when you're on a movie set, the fight can be taped several times. Cut, scrap that, do it again. Cut, scrap it, do it again. Let's do it again until it's perfect. These young men and women do not get that opportunity. It has to be perfect the first time, every time. And when it's not, it's very obvious, because all of us have seen really terrible action or martial art movies where the punch or the kick just doesn't sell and it looks terrible. And that difference, whether it be Marvel or anything else, it's the proof is in the pudding, as they say, and it's very, very clear when it's not, right? So this precision psychologically and mentally to be in that right mindset is massive. So that's the similarity. On the athletic training side, where you're familiar with American football, for example, my exposure to football, I translate, and this is a really good example with, let's say, like an offensive lineman coming off the line and blocking. That mechanism of moving your feet, using your hips, getting position, and striking the defensive lineman coming at you is not that different than a martial artist getting set, prepared, and that strike across the body, whether it's a punch or a shove or whatever, kick. So the mechanism of injury, as we often say, isn't that different when we start talking about some of these injuries that I've seen that injury. It wasn't in a fight, but it was a fight on the gridiron or whatever the case may be, right? If that gives you any context.
No, that's great. I think you said a bunch of things there. The similarities again. No, it's very good to hear, because I believe the exact same thing. There's a lot of overlap. And I think the similarities, like you said, it doesn't matter what your professional sport or even what your sport is. The precision that you practice with, that's going to be how you're going to execute it when lights are on or in the game time situation. And in your case, it's just when their actual live performances, and same thing for like a football player, doesn't matter, tennis player, golfer, anything. The precision when you need to execute, that's what's important. And all of that is in the preparation. And I think a lot of times we take for granted how good certain things are with these athletes, but we don't understand that. I should say the average person that doesn't see behind the scenes, they might not understand how much preparation and how much hard work, blood, sweat, and tears it took to get them to do that three times a day or however many times they have those live performances. And the second thing that you said about there is that the mechanism, like pretty much your body, it doesn't matter if you're a quarterback or if you're a contortionist or aerialist, your body is meant to move in certain ways. And of course, their task that they have to carry out is different. Like throwing a ball 60 miles an hour versus, I don't know, doing some kind of flip or whatever aerial stunt. the task is different, but the way that your body is meant to carry this out safely, like how you said, and the mechanism of injury, that is relatively consistent because we all have the same bones, muscle, nervous system, everything. So I think that's interesting because we might encounter completely different sets of injuries and completely sets of mechanisms because we're not carrying out the same task. But when it comes down to it, how you train the body, how you rehab the body, how you assess, evaluate the body, that's pretty much the same across the board. I don't think anything changes with that.
Yeah.